Okay, so today's chat is basically picking up some of the big stories we didn't get to yesterday.
Hey, now, you make it sound like we're serving leftovers.
No, not at all. Not leftovers. More like the stories that were too important to rush.
Yeah.
You know how it is. Some things just slip through the cracks.
All right, I'll give you that. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our Sip&Talkers, wherever you are. I'm glad we're doing this because we got a lot of messages from our listeners in Taiwan about this natural person certificate explosion.
Yep, that one's on the list. We're definitely getting to it. It's basically a full-blown constitutional war being fought with a single digital ID card.
But before we get there, we're also looking at the UK, where there's this huge fight over a new super embassy that some are calling a spy center.
And the spat between Japan and South Korea, which, is bubbling up again. And China is just sitting on the sidelines watching.
Oh, not just watching. They're wagging a finger and saying Japan is, and I quote, displeasing its neighbors.
The irony.
I won't name any names about who the grand master of displeasing neighbors really is.
Exactly. So, yeah, all these stories sound separate, but they're all about these last lines of defense for democracy and security.
They're fascinating cases. Let's break them down for everyone.
Okay, let's start in London. This proposed Chinese super embassy. The scale of what they want to build is, it's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. We're talking about the largest Chinese embassy in all of Europe. The plan is to build it at Royal Mint Court, and it would be like almost double the size of their embassy in Washington, D.C.
Double the size. And the location, that's really the heart of the issue, isn't it?
That's the core of the security concern. It's in Tower Hamlets, which is super close to London's financial district, so you have all this critical corporate data nearby. But the real kicker...
the undersea cables.
Exactly. Our sources confirm there are sensitive undersea communication cables running right near that area.
So you have this massive facility with full diplomatic immunity sitting right on top of the data backbone of, the region.
Yeah, and that's the fear. Protesters, especially from the British resident communities, but also from Hong Kong, Uyghur, Tibetan, and Taiwanese dissident groups, they're not worried about visa processing.
Right. They're worried it's going to be a giant spy center or a monitoring post.
A base for cross-border repression, a place where, protected by the Vienna Convention, they could track or harass critics of the Chinese government who are living legally in the UK.
And this isn't just paranoia, right? There's a precedent.
A very recent and very clear one. You just have to look at what happened at the Manchester consulate back in 2022.
Where they dragged a protester inside the consulate grounds.
They dragged him in and assaulted him on British soil. And that just threw this massive spotlight on how diplomatic immunity creates this legal security loophole.
Because when the UK police wanted to investigate, Beijing just said no.
They refused to waive immunity for the officials involved, and then before any charges could be filed, they just quietly pulled them out of the country.
So yeah, you can see why people look at this proposed super embassy and see a colossal, legally untouchable base for future operations.
And the politics of it are a mess. The local council in Tower Hamlets actually listened to the residents and rejected the plan.
But then the UK's central government stepped in.
The central government overruled them, but now they seem to be stuck. They keep delaying the final decision. First it was this year, now it's been pushed all the way to January 2026.
That delay feels significant. It's not just paperwork.
It's paralysis. The government is getting slammed for it. Critics are saying they're prioritizing potential economic ties over, actual national security and the human rights of people on their own soil.
That tension, economics versus security, is a perfect pivot to East Asia.
Where we're seeing this incredible display of, diplomatic hypocrisy.
Okay, so set the scene for us. What's the latest flare-up?
Well, you have high-level politicians in Japan, like Prime Minister Takaichi, making some pretty strong statements, suggesting that a Chinese move on Taiwan would be a survival threat to Japan.
Which implies they might get involved.
It opens that door. At the same time, Japan is reasserting its claims over the islands they call Takeshima.
Which South Korea calls Dokdo. Yeah. And that always angers Seoul.
Always. But here's the amazing part. China's reaction to all this. Beijing went to the United Nations and lodged a formal complaint.
Against Japan.
Against Japan, condemning them for provoking China and reviving militarism. And then they dropped this line, warning Japan not to displease its neighbors.
Displease its neighbors? I mean, if China is going to be the expert on keeping neighbors happy, maybe we should do a quick fact check.
Let's do it. Where should we start? India.
Yeah, India. where there are ongoing military standoffs in places like Ladakh, and China keeps publishing these new maps claiming huge chunks of Indian territory.
Okay, so that's one displeased neighbor. How about the Philippines?
Or Vietnam, or Malaysia. The whole South China Sea situation.
Yeah.
China just ignores the Hague's ruling on the 9-dash line and keeps using, like, water cannons on Philippine boats.
And those aren't just squirt guns. They're high-pressure cannons that damage vessels and injure sailors. It's aggressive.
Definitely displeasing. And then there's Taiwan itself. You know, the very issue Japan was talking about. China sends dozens of military planes into their air defense zone constantly.
That's a bit more than displeasing. That's a direct threat.
And don't forget South Korea. China hit them with that unofficial economic boycott, the limited Korean order, just because they deployed the THAAD missile defense system.
So the strategy here is pretty transparent.
It's crystal clear. China is using these old, really emotional historical disputes, like Dokdo and Takashima, to try and drive a wedge between the U.S., Japan, and South Korea.
It's a classic deflection. Create chaos over here, point fingers about historical issues so nobody looks at your own, active expansionist policies happening right now.
It's a masterclass in double standards.
A total double standard.
Yeah.
And speaking of strategy, that brings us to Taiwan, where citizens are deploying a fascinating strategy of their own.
All right, this is the story about the digital ID. So applications for what's called the Natural Person Certificate, or NPC, have surged.
By 4 times the normal rate. We're talking about shortages in some government offices. People are rushing to get this digital ID card.
And it's not for taxes or healthcare. It's become a digital key for something much bigger.
A digital key to sign petitions for a huge national referendum. And what they're trying to do is repeal a recent change to the law governing their constitutional court.
Okay, so this sounds a little technical, but the stakes are incredibly high.
The stakes are the democratic system itself. Let me break it down. Taiwan's constitutional court, which is like their Supreme Court for constitutional issues, is the final check on the legislature.
It's the emergency button.
Perfect analogy. It's the emergency button you press when the lawmakers go too far. But to make a ruling, the court needs 10 justices to be present. A quorum of 10.
Okay, so they need 10 people in the room.
Right. But because of some vacancies and the timing of this new amendment that was passed, the court only has 8 justices right now.
Wait, so they can't meet?
They literally cannot meet the quorum. The court is technically paralyzed. The emergency button is broken.
Wow. And the political consequence of that is huge.
It's profound. With the court unable to act, the current legislative majority, which is the KMT and TPP parties, could pass pretty much any law they want on national security, on foreign policy, without that final judicial review.
There's no backstop.
Zero backstop. Now, to be fair, the opposition parties who passed this amendment, they argue it was necessary. They claim the court had become a rubber stamp for the other party and that this was about restoring balance.
But the public doesn't seem to be buying that explanation.
Not at all. The fact that thousands of people are scrambling to get a digital ID just to sign a petition tells you everything. They see this as a direct attack on their democratic safeguards.
It's this incredible example of direct democracy, powered by technology, pushing back against what they see as an overreach by their elected representatives.
They're using a digital tool to try and save a fundamental pillar of their analog democracy.
You know, when you lay it all out, all 3 of these stories are really about the same thing. London, East Asia, Taiwan.
It's this deep tension, isn't it? The actions of powerful states or political parties are clashing directly with the rights of the individual citizen.
The right to be safe from state repression in London.
The right to have your national sovereignty respected in Asia.
And the right to have a functioning democratic system with checks and balances in Taiwan. It all comes back to that.
It does. And that Taiwan story leaves us with a really provocative thought to chew on.
Let's hear it.
This whole situation really shines a light on the power of digital identity in a democracy. As more and more countries move toward using these kinds of digital tools for voting, for petitions, for everything, you have to ask a question.
Does it empower people?
That's the one side of the coin. Does it empower citizens by making it incredibly easy to participate? Or does it also create a new, single point of failure? A centralized vulnerability that a government could, one day, exploit to control who gets to participate in democracy and who doesn't? What does all this mean for your digital rights wherever you happen to be listening from?
That is a powerful question and something we should all be thinking about. Well, thank you for joining us for this very important catch-up session.
It was a dense one, but necessary. As always, thank you for tuning in to Sip and Talk.
If you found this useful, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps. And hey, give a shout out to our old friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickytolife. He's got some great memes and awesome travel vlogs up.
He does indeed. We'll see you all next time.